You've probably heard the phrase, I think, therefore I am. It's one of the most famous lines in all of philosophy. But, it's not just some clever saying. It's actually the grand finale of one of the most incredible intellectual adventures anyone has ever undertaken. So let's get into the story of the man who literally decided to tear down everything he knew just to find one single thing he could be absolutely sure of.
So, meet René Descartes. We're talking about a 17th century genius. And after getting one of the best educations money could buy in Europe, he had this startling realization. The more he learned, the less he felt he actually knew for certain. This quote just nails his frustration. He basically concluded that the entire system of knowledge he'd been handed was, well, fundamentally broken.
Now, to really get Descartes, you have to picture his world. The 17th century was a time of massive upheaval. You had all these old medieval certainties about God, about the universe, and they were just crumbling thanks to brand new scientific discoveries. And right in the middle of all this chaos, Descartes sets himself this deeply personal mission to find one single, unshakable foundation that he could use to rebuild all of human knowledge. No big deal, right? His whole life was really a search for this one thing, for certainty. After his fancy education left him feeling empty, he spent a whole decade, from 1618 to 1628, just traveling, what he called studying the book of the world. This wasn't a vacation. He was seeing firsthand how wildly different people's opinions and customs were from place to place. And all that experience just made him more convinced that the knowledge of his day wasn't built on anything solid, which eventually led him to publish his game-changing work, Discourse on the Method, in 1637. Descartes had this really powerful metaphor for the knowledge of his time. He said that philosophy, which was supposed to be the foundation for everything else, for all the sciences, was like this magnificent palace built on nothing but sand and mud. I mean, it looked amazing from the outside, but he knew it was totally unstable. And if your foundation is shaky, well, everything you build on top of it is just waiting to collapse. So what do you do when you find out your house is built on sand? You don't just patch up the cracks on the wall, no. If you're Descartes, you take a sledgehammer to the whole thing. He knew that to build a new, secure temple of knowledge, he first had to become an architect of demolition. He had to tear down every single belief he held brick by brick. And his number one tool for this demolition project was something he called methodical doubt. Okay, and this part is absolutely crucial. He wasn't doubting just for the sake of doubting. He wasn't trying to be a skeptic who ends up believing in nothing. It was the exact opposite. He was using doubt like a filter, a way to sift through all of his beliefs until he found something, anything at all, that was completely 100% impossible to doubt. And to guide this whole process, he laid out these 4 simple but really powerful rules. Rule 1 is all about clarity. Don't accept anything as true unless it's so obvious you can't possibly doubt it. Rule 2 is analysis. Break down every complicated problem into its tiniest little pieces. Rule 3 is order. Start with the easiest, simplest pieces and slowly build your way up to the more complex stuff. And finally, Rule 4, completeness. Just be so thorough that you're positive you haven't missed anything. This was his personal blueprint for how to think straight. All right, so with his rules in hand and his tool of doubt sharpened, Descartes was ready to go. He was about to turn this weapon of methodical doubt on absolutely everything he thought he knew, starting with the very foundations of his reality. He posed this radical question. I mean, just think about it for a second. Of all the things you believe, all the things you think are true, is there anything at all that you can be 100% unshakably sure of? Descartes decided to put that to the ultimate test. And so the demolition begins. First to go, the senses. Can you trust what you see and hear? Nope. We've all seen a stick in water that looks bent. Things far away look small. Our senses trick us all the time. So they were unreliable. Out they go. Okay, what about reason? What about simple math, like 2 + 2 = 4? Well, people make mistakes in math all the time. So maybe, just maybe, he's making a mistake right now. So reason is now suspect too. And then he goes for the knockout punch, reality itself. How do you know for sure that you aren't dreaming right this very second? I mean, you've had dreams that felt totally real. There's no foolproof test to prove you're awake. And just like that, all the pillars of his knowledge, senses, reason, reality, they all come crashing down. So everything is gone. The evidence from his own eyes, the certainty of logic, even the feeling of the real world around him. He's left floating in this complete void of uncertainty, this abyss of doubt. But it's right here, in this total darkness, that he finally finds his solid ground.
Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. He realizes that he could be dreaming, he could be wrong about everything, he could even be deceived by some powerful evil demon. But in every single one of those scenarios, there has to be an I that is doing the doubting. You can't have a thought without a thinker. And that's the breakthrough. The very act of doubting his own existence proves that he exists. It's the one thing that is absolutely impossible to doubt. He found his foundation.
And from this one single point of certainty, the existence of his own thinking mind, Descartes would go on to try and rebuild the entire world of knowledge. And that is why you so often hear him called the father of modern philosophy. And the scale of this revolution was just huge. I mean, look at this. Before Descartes, in what's called scholastic thought, the starting point for all knowledge was something external. God, the authority of the church, ancient texts. The foundation was faith. But Descartes just completely flips the entire script. After him, the starting point becomes the internal, individual self, the I, and the foundation isn't faith anymore, it's individual reason.
That's why a later, really famous philosopher like Hegel could make such a bold claim. By putting the I, the thinking self, right at the very center of the search for truth, Descartes basically set the agenda for the next 400 years of Western thought. His ideas influenced everything from the scientific method to how we think about our own identities today.
So if there's one thing to take away, it's this. Descartes wasn't just a skeptic, he was an architect. After tearing down that old, rickety house of knowledge built on the sand and mud of tradition, he laid a brand new cornerstone. And that cornerstone was the self, proven to exist by the simple, undeniable fact that it was thinking.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty provocative question, doesn't it? Descartes went on this incredibly radical journey to find his foundation. But what about you? If you followed his method, if you decided to doubt everything you possibly could, what would be the very last truth you'd be left with? What's your cornerstone of certainty?